Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ronnie Timmermans from Xenit. Xenit, part of the Amexio group. As you see, the logos in the background were sponsored. And today is about ContentGrid, ContentGrid V2 version 2, the ultra scalable and intelligent content service for new times. So I'm happy to present the webinar to you, to introduce the webinar, because actually the presentation will be done by my colleagues. I'm going to start the slideshow. So, ContentGrid V2. First of all, what happened between V1 and V2 is not only a lot of technical good work and a new architecture, but also we got part of a bigger group acquired by the Amexio group. Amexio group being present in 9 countries, 900 plus employees, and more than 140 million revenue per year. Why was that a good move? We think because it gives us much more network expertise in the group. The Amexio group is a content-centric group, structured content management, user experience, enterprise content management, archiving, etc. So this is the bigger house where we are really comfortable to further develop and give more momentum to ContentGrid. So it's great to be part of the group. Our mission and the mission of the group is turning content into value. And I think that perfectly aligns with what Xenit has been doing for the past 18 years with diverse open source solutions. We are building on that know-how in the future. Why ContentGrid? Again, me, Ronnie Timmermans. Why we think it's necessary to launch a new service on the market is that these times, 2025, almost 2026, we are confronted with growing amounts of critical business content. It just grows and grows. There's not no reduction of content. Abundant legislation and regulation, you know, DORA, you know, NIS2. There's a lot of regulation to comply with. Rising costs. We have to control our cost and competitive pressure from new innovative competitors that demands for a transformative content service, a new way to manage content, all kinds of contents, documents, emails, whatever. And we want to help our customers to unleash budget for innovation and value to their users, not for upgrades and a lot of technical base work, no, for innovation. And with 20 years of experience, we have built ContentGrid from the ground up. To transform the user experience, I think it can be much easier. There is, of course, also AI to leverage to find documents, but not just the document, but also the information that you need. It needs to be faster, very scalable, 100 million, 200 million, 500 million documents at the lowest cost possible. And that is what the architecture of ContentGrid V2 even targets better. Open source, cloud native, friendly for people, API first, and SLA driven. We think those things are important. The old boring archive of the past days has become an active, assisted, intuitive, intelligent, and automated system. And that's where the future has to go for. And that's where your architecture and V2 is ready for. Today's speaker, Jean-François de Klerk, our Chief Solution Officer. He will talk about integrations. There is our Chief Technical Officer, Thijs Lemmens, also the lead of the ContentGrid team. And there is Ranek Belpere, our AI expert, software engineer, that will talk about the new experience. Just switching to the agenda. We will first speak about a real-time scalable repository for all types of corporate content by showing the integration of ContentGrid with Salesforce and Guidewire. Salesforce, everybody knows, it's a CRM. Guidewire is a business application very known in the insurance industry, but it is an illustration of all corporate content can be stored in ContentGrid, managed, saved, preserved, and linked. Jean-François will show that. V2 architecture is, of course, the subject for Thijs Lemmens. It's perfect fit to his expertise. One highlight in the V2 architecture is we have introduced bidirectional relations. It was not simple in V1, it was possible in V2, and we think it closes the loop of a user experience. And that brings me to step number 3. What have we done for the user experience, the search experience, basically, and that will be explained by Ranik Belpere in the third section of this presentation. By the way, you should count about 40 minutes for the webinar. You can ask questions, there's Q&A, please go ahead. And that will be the most important element. Feel free to ask questions. We'll pick them up at the end of the webinar or in the webinar itself when the question would be very relevant at a specific topic, but in principle at the end of the webinar. So I think that for me concludes the intro. I will now pass stage to Jean-François de Klerk to show integration.
Jean-François, we don't hear you yet.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now it's
okay.
fine.
Thank you. To start this webinar, we'll show you some demos of ContentGrid so we can show again what is the basics. And we are going to talk first about integration. This is not specific to the V2, but in fact, while we develop the V2, we continue to develop other features on top of ContentGrid. And one of those developments is the connectors. So you see the logos. We work with companies to help us integrate with business applications like Salesforce or Guidewire. I will say a word about those applications a bit later. And to help me today, you will see at the end of the demo, Piotr will help me to show the Guidewire integration. So what is a connector? So what we want to do with ContentGrid is to provide it as a kind of enterprise memory where you can store your content for long term and a lot of content, millions and millions of documents of information, data. And we have provided connectors to be able to produce or consume content from or to business applications. So those connectors allow to integrate with Salesforce, with Guidewire, with Odoo, with SAP, or any other business application that you have that relies on content. And it's a piece that is content-centric. So Salesforce, if you don't know it, it's a cloud-based platform, helps businesses to manage customer relationships, sales, marketing, customer service information in one place. So that's more into the sales world, I would say. And then Guidewire is more an insurance application. And we are going to use in the demo an application called Claims Center. It's also a cloud-based application. And it manages the insurance process for claims. And so what is the idea in the demo is that end users can stay into the business application. So Salesforce user will use Salesforce as usual. Guidewire users will use Guidewire as usual, but they will provide and consume content coming from the ContentGrid content platform. So you could have those two applications storing information in their own repository if you want. What we did in the demo is what if those two applications would share the same repository? That would allow to transfer content and data and files from one side to the other in an easy, fast and secure way. And this is what ContentGrid provides as a content service platform. This connectors comes from our vision and the requirements that we see from our customers and on the markets, that when you have a content service platform where you're going to store all your content for long-term archiving, you will need to integrate them with various applications that can be inbound. So what you get from the outside world can be outbound, what you publish as information outside, but also internally different business applications like Salesforce or like Odoo, Guidewire, or portals or email or mobile applications. So you will have to integrate your content in different applications. So customers do that with different ways. Some of them use an enterprise service bus, or we see new platforms like integration platform as a service, or even robots could consume and post content. And in this case, we are discussing connectors. What is the goal of a connector? The idea of a connector is that you can, we provide you a pre-configured integration with a transparent user experience. So you use your business application as usual. You will be able to search, store, retrieve content in ContentGrid, but you will not going to see it because it's transparent for you. And what we see is that more and more applications are based on business objects and a business model and business information model. And this is something that we can exploit into the core of ContentGrid to map information. In this demo, we will show it for two connectors, the Salesforce connector and the Guidewire connector. We have been developing those connectors for a while now, before the V2 was there. And the good news is that thanks to the architecture of ContentGrid, which publishes business APIs, there is no impact on our connectors. So the new V2 for us is a kind of non-event in the sense that we rely on the business information model, and those APIs are very stable. So there is no migration on the connector side. And Ranek and Thijs will show this afterwards, there are new features that, of course, will be able to exploit, like the bidirectional relationships, for example. So what we did in the demo here, you see, we could say we have CRM content coming from Salesforce, and we have insurance content coming from Guidewire, and say, okay, what if we would have one model that unites both? So this is an image of the model that we are going to use. And I'm going to show it maybe directly into ContentGrid. This is, in fact, the basics of a ContentGrid. So this is a ContentGrid console. In this console, you can manage your content applications. And the founding, the start of any content application is the business information model that you see here as data model that we need to define to say what content are we going to store. What you see here are different entities, account, contact, opportunity, campaigns. So this is the kind of information that we want to store. This is more related to the Salesforce world. And those we are able to attach documents and say, oh, this document is important for an account or for an opportunity or for a contact. And what we're going to do is to say on the right side, you have more business entities coming from the insurance world. So in the insurance, you will have policies, you will have claims. So we're going to show Guidewire Claims Center. And the idea is to say, oh, what if we would link to the same documents, something that would come from Salesforce and that would be linked to the insurance world? That would be a way to transfer information and content between business applications in a way that the end user does not notice how this information came to him. So we can start by looking at Salesforce. This is a Salesforce application that we have, and we are going to focus on the account parts. So the accounts are a list of companies that are B2B customers, for example. And this is a standard Salesforce module. So you'll see we have several test accounts, and I made one here for today for the demo, which is a ContentGrid V2 company, which is, of course, Xenit. And when you click on this account, you see, in fact, a standard sales screen, where you can see the different information about what industry is this, what is the annual revenue, what is the website. So that's Salesforce as usual. Now added a component here that is in fact showing content coming from ContentGrid. And the application allows to recuperate some of the information of this company over this account and a link to a document. So how are we going to do this? In fact, in the configuration of the connector, we have a mapper. So this mapper allows us to say, okay, I have a Salesforce object, which is an account, and I'm going to map it to ContentGrid, in this case, something external from the point of view of Salesforce. And we are going to map account Salesforce to account ContentGrid. The next thing that we can do is to map fields and say what we would like to copy into ContentGrid or to archive into ContentGrid. So I see here that I'm going to, for example, duplicate the website into field from Salesforce into the website field in ContentGrid in the data model that we have. This connector is going to look if there is a change. What I'm going to do, I'm going to refresh the data so that you always have the latest account information in ContentGrid. So that's for the basic entity accounts. When clicking here on the settings, you will see that the connector is able to understand that there is a relationship between an account and a document. And you see here also opportunities. So I can also link to other kind of information and show them into Salesforce, this information coming from ContentGrid. So by adding this document link here, when I go to my account, this widget here is able to show this relationship. So you have a relationship between an account and a document. What I can do, I can upload a document from Salesforce. This is an account, so I was thinking, okay, I'd like to have the profile of Xenit available into my CRM application. The type of document is other. The author is JF de Klerk demo, and the description is Xenit company profile. Up. And so the connector is going to upload it. We have success messages, which is always a good thing. And what happens? We had one document, which was a brochure of the product of this company selling, ContentGrid. And now I have also the company profile. I have the opportunity to see this directly into ContentGrid by using our standard application, which is called the ContentGrid Navigator. So when you have a data model, we're going to automatically provide this application that allows to look at the different entities and the data that has been put into ContentGrid. So if I look into the accounts, you see that I have the different accounts, and those have been synchronized automatically by the connector. So I have my ContentGrid V2 company, and then here at the bottom, you see that we have a relationship with documents, and that my Xenit company profile has been added. Yeah, so that's my company profile. So I'm a Salesforce user. I uploaded, without knowing it, this information into ContentGrid. So what's interesting then, we have our model, which can unify the CRM information to the insurance information. So what are we going to do? We are going to manually, in this case, link my document, which is here. You see, I could say, this document is important for a claim because this company has a claim, and our colleagues of Guidewire users, they would like to know what is the profile of this company. So I will able to link it to claims. Some claims have already been replicated into ContentGrid. And you see, I'm going to use this claim 003. So I'm going to link it. And so what I created here is a link between this document and the Guidewire world. And this is where I'm going to introduce Piotr, who is going to show us that this document indeed can land into the second application.
Hello everyone, so my name is Piotr Soltys. I am the developer of Tempestoles Consulting. We are the international consulting company focused on the insurance and banking. And as you can see now, you can see the Guidewire Client Center. This is the claim that Jean-Francois was using, the 00003. And I will go to the documents screen. And you can see that there are 4 documents, which one of those was put by Jean-Francois right now. You can see also that you can search the documents by some fields like name or identifier. I can send it here and it will filter out only those that I put in the field. You can also see the document metadata. There is a description that was added on the creation of the Salesforce. And also we can see the preview of the document. We are continuing to developing more of the features like uploading, deleting, and synchronizing data between claims and ContentGrid in the future. That's everything, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Piotr. And that was it for our first demo. And now we can leave the stage to Thijs, who is going to talk about more the feature developments of the V2.
Hello, I'm Thijs Lemmens. I'm the CTO of Xenit and team lead of the ContentGrid team. Before digging into the ContentGrid architecture, I'd like to share some performance test results we got. We did a proof of concept for a client with a legacy ACM system, and we migrated 110 million documents from the legacy system to ContentGrid to compare the two. The first comparison I'm going to make is on the infrastructure. So the first graph is about the CPU usage, or the amount of CPUs we need to run the ContentGrid application. And we can see here that we only need about half the CPUs we need for the legacy application. If we look at the RAM usage, that's even a lot less, that's about 10%. And in this comparison, we need even less compared to the legacy system. Here we do exclude the disk usage from the S3 bucket that contains the actual documents, because that's the same in the two situations. And also the database is excluded, so it's only the software itself. So ContentGrid is much more efficient in terms of infrastructure. So it's a lot cheaper to run and it's better for the environment. However, if performance results are not good, that doesn't really matter. So the first performance result I want to show here is ContentGrid. It's behind my face here. To the legacy in a migration scenario. So that migration of the 110 million documents from the legacy system, you can see that ContentGrid maintained a throughput from beginning until the end of about 500 documents per second. When at the time we did the migration to the legacy system from another system, we noticed that the performance degraded from about 200 documents a second to 20 documents a second as the database grew. So you can see here that with ContentGrid, we can go a lot further without losing in performance. We also tested the query performance. So we did a test with 50 concurrent queries. So we did a throughput of 50 queries per second. And also here we can see that the ContentGrid performance is really good. 99.9% of the queries were below 40 milliseconds. And if you go a bit further, all of them almost all of them were below 50 milliseconds or just above. So now a little word on content grid architecture, or the difference between the architecture of V1 and V2. Content grid consists of a management platform that contains the console that Jean-François showed already, where you can model and deploy your application, and that deployment happens to the runtime platform. So a deployed application runs on a runtime platform and serves the actual request to the users. A runtime platform is a microservice-based system. You don't need to read all the microservices. I know it's quite small, but it's just an illustration that there are quite a bit of components on a runtime platform. And in the change from V1 to V2, we only changed actually one of the components right in the middle. That's the content grid application. Actually, on a runtime platform, there are multiple content grid applications. So each deployed application is a separate block of those. So you have an application per deployment. Now, what's a V1 application? In a V1 application, that document model transforms into generated Java code, which is using Spring Data REST. So the entities and their attributes are actually written into Java. And we have some content grid libraries to offer the specific functionalities for content grid. This approach worked really well for us because Spring Data REST gave us a lot out of the box, but we see some issues now. For one-to-many and many-to-many relationships, operations like adding and updating got a bit slow as the size of the collection grew on the many side. Also, the development got a bit slower as we deviated from the standard practices in Spring Data REST. So it's an opinionated framework. It expects you to do things in certain ways. If you start deviating from that opinion, things get a little bit harder, or a lot harder. And one of those things is implementing bidirectional relations, and which I'm going to explain now. So here we have an example of two entities, invoice entities and supplier entities, with a one-to-many relationship. So one supplier has many invoices, and one invoice has only one supplier. So if you have a single directional relation, you have to choose if you put the arrow from one side to the other. So from invoice to supplier means that if you are on an invoice, you can easily navigate to the supplier. But you cannot, if you're on a supplier, you cannot easily navigate to the invoice. You would need to search from the invoice side if you want to do that. In the bidirectional case, you're not limited anymore to unidirectional relations, so relations can go both ways. So if you're on an invoice, you can go to the supplier easily, and you can go back as well. It's not only for navigation that it's important, but you can also define security policies to go over a relation, and also that can go both ways. Now, what does the V2 architecture look like? We have a REST layer. That's actually what the Navigator UI uses, or any integration, any other application integrating with Content Grid uses the REST layer. And that communicates to the domain layer. That's an abstraction over the query engine, content store engine, and application resolver below. The query engine in a V2 architecture is very different from V1. We implemented a query engine using a library called JOOQ, which is a very thin layer above SQL. So it helps us to write SQL in Java. Before in Spring Data REST, it was all relying on Hibernate, which is a much bigger abstraction. So this gives us full control over the SQL. And we use PostgreSQL as a database. The content store layer is rather similar. But on the right side, we see another big difference is we have an application configuration. So there's an application resolver, and the application is now defined in a JSON file as opposed to the Java files with the entities and attributes. So entities and attributes are now in a JSON configuration file. That means that the application we use to serve different actual content applications can be the same Java code, the same Docker container. Previously, we needed to build a Docker container for every application. There are a few advantages to that. The new architecture allows us easily to support bidirectional relations. We now have full control over database queries because we cut a lot of the abstractions above it. There's quicker deployment. We don't need to build Docker images anymore because they all use the same code base, and because we have full control over the full stack of the application. New features can be implemented faster. We are no longer on an opinionated framework. And that's about it for the ContentGrid architecture. I can now give the stage to Ranek, who will talk about the user experience.
Thank you, Tess, for the introduction. So hello, my name is Ranek Belpere, and what I would like to show you today is the data model Jean-Francois talked about earlier. So here today we also have accounts and contacts, typically modeled in Salesforce, and then the policies and the claims typically in Guidewire. In the middle, we also have documents. In total, I have 9,500 documents in my ContentGrid backend application. We also saw the different interfaces to handle those entities, and I would like to show you our specialized UI, which can indeed go a lot faster than the examples we saw earlier. So to start off, I will go into my contacts, and when I click on this, I immediately get my results. How are my contacts modeled in my case? I see that I have 1,000 contacts and they all have a first and last name. Now, on this table, I can select the different attributes I want to see. For instance, only last names, only first names. And I have in the top general search bar, which allows me to search across all these different contacts in my result list. So when I start typing, I immediately get back results from ContentGrid, and I get pre-types on the different fields on first name or on last name. So when I type the three letters JOH, I immediately see that I have matches on first names and a match on last name, for instance, Johnson. Then I can also select to only search first names with those three letters, and I get a result back immediately saying that there are 10 results of my 1,000 contacts, which has a first name who start with the letters JOH. And I also get a search chip, which shows me my current search filters, which are active. I can also disable that and go back to the first result. Now for this demo, I added different contacts and I gave them a last name called demo. So I can immediately click on these and I can see that I now have 10 results with 10 contacts with the last name demo. So when I click on these results, I can see the different attributes modeled in the ContentGrid data model, and we can see the relation to accounts, and this relation is not yet filled in. So for, going further, for this demo, I will create a new account. I will select to create a new account, and I will call this account demo. It is a small business and its industry is in webinars, for instance. I will create this account and we can see, okay, my account is immediately created. I have a new account called demo. It has 0 policies, 0 documents, and 0 contacts. And now I would like to find those contacts we saw earlier and link them to my account. So here we again get that pre-typing on the different fields, but we can also go into a more advanced view where I can also do pre-typing on, for instance, the last name of my demo contacts. Then again, I can select them all and link those entities to my account. Okay, so my account now has contacts. So what I would like is for my bidirectional relations that my contacts also have an account. So for instance, if I go now to Jeff Demo, I can see that my account Jeff Demo also has the account I just created linked to that contact. Now, if I would say, oh, this was a mistake, I would like to unlink this account from this contact. I can say, okay, now unlink it. And this relation is now removed. Then when I go back and try to search for my account, I can see that it is immediately indexed and that we can find it back in here. And we can see, okay, now I don't have 10 contacts, but I only have 9 contacts. And Jeff Demo is not yet in is no longer in the contact list. Then again, the power of relations in ContentGrid. We can also search through relations. So what I can do with my search filters is also find all contacts which have a related account with a certain name. And now I will try to find all the contacts that belong to the account demo. And we see we get back our 9 results. Okay, now we will go and take a look into the different policies of my system. In total, I have 629. And the policies have a bit more attributes, a bit more metadata. And based on the type of that metadata, we can do more filtering on those different attributes. For instance, policy number, where we also have the prefix search. We have a premium where we can search between different ranges. And we can also search for the dates from which this policy ranges from and ranges to. For policy type, we have 3 different types, for instance, car insurance, health insurance, or home insurance. And then we also have the different status of those policies. Again, through relations, we can also search for policies who contain a specific claim number. We can search for accounts through the policyholder relation and so further. So what I would now like to do is, for instance, search all policy types called health. And then we would like to do a prefix search, finding all policies from 2020, for instance. Okay, that limits my results to 34. And I can now even sort on these results. Let's say, for instance, I am searching the policy with the highest premium and with the policy type of health. You can see the status is expired. It's from 2020. And we can take a look, for instance. Now, arriving at this policy, we see, okay, this is a name. It is expired indeed. And we have a policy holder linked to it, an account, the one I showed earlier, and the account name is Artisan Jewelry Makers. For this policy, we also have 2 linked claims, and we can take a look at these different claims. So for instance, going to the first one, we can see that this claim also has a relation to documents. In these documents that are linked to my claim, I can also search between them and see, okay, there are 7 documents related to this claim. And I can, for instance, filter on, I only want letters that were sent to somebody. And we can see, okay, from those 7 documents, there are 3 letters. And we can take a look at these letters immediately. We get the content preview, which is very much faster. And then we can take a look and see, okay, in the detailed view of this document, we see that this document also has a relation to a receiver. This letter was sent to somebody, it was sent to a contact, and we can see, okay, this contact name is Laura Williams, for instance. And when we go to Laura Williams, we can also see the related account for that person, which is again then the artisan jewelry makers. So going through these relations, I can actually find all related information. And now let's say I am interested in this account. Okay, we see the jewelry makers. We see the policy we found earlier with that specific premium. And we also have a relation from account to documents. So what are the related documents to this account? We can see a business analysis summary or a company overview report, which we then also can immediately find back and take a look at this specific contents. So that concludes this demo for the search experience, which shows you that in a relational model, you can quickly find all related information. Now with bidirectional relations, you can actually make a complete loop and quickly find and navigate through the content. Now I will take a quick look if there are any open questions, which they are not, and then I will pass the word back to Ronnie for the final concluding words.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ranik. I think if I wrap it up, I'll share a slide on that one. We've seen how ContentGrid can handle content from different enterprise applications, Salesforce, Guidewire, but why not Odoo, SAP, others, different input and output channels. We can connect that content so you can have very meaningful queries on the set of documents and the whole context that is around that content. Sharing my final slide. There we go. Yep, that's it. So wrapping up, it's an enterprise content service. We have paid an enormous amount of engineering and detail and passion to scale it, to make it as simple as possible, scale it, and to make it rich with connections. You've seen the efficiency. I have a small screenshot there, how little resources ContentGrid needs to perform extremely well compared to legacy solutions, because ContentGrid has been designed and architected to do so. That's the new world, I think, where we want to offer a solution. 100 million, 200 million documents, 10 million documents, why not? Make it fast. It's very efficient, that's shown. So your cloud budget should benefit from that, i.e. be lower. We support bidirectionality for a richer user experience, not just for a user experience, but also for access control, because you can put access control rules now in 2 directions, which makes it pretty expressive. We've improved the search experience. I think Ranik took the time to show you what is possible now, how scenarios that your users will need to execute are supported intuitively by ContentGrid. And we can deploy, you know that, bring your own cloud on AWS, on OpenShift, on the Amexio cloud, if necessary, as possible. Looking forward, v 2.1 version, April 2026, we're going to bring even improvements in the search experience by means of facets and full text. Full text is in the making. It will be available sooner, but that will be the official release point. Facets and filters are, I think, let's say, the cherry on the cake of search experience. And we will bring a first version that implements vector search, retrieval augmented generation, so you can ask questions to your documents. Imagine an interface where we don't have too much graphical user elements, but you just talk to your repository and you retrieve the documents, and only the documents that you're entitled to see, and conclusions based upon the documents you're entitled to see, and just shorten the route to an answer from a question. Very important for next year is the qualified digital archive stamp that we're going to obtain with ContentGrid, because we are a real-time content service layer integrating with different applications, but we will retain those documents in the long term in a compliant way with the different norms in the market. And that means that you have to have auditing, you have to have digital seals, you have to prove authenticity of a document, and to retain the document according to a records management schedule. Those things will be added. I'm having a quick look whether I have a question still in the chat. No, nothing particularly. So we have used 45 minutes. That was our goal. I thank you very much for your attention. The session has been recorded. It will be distributed. Don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you have more questions, you want to do some tests, some pilots, etc., or just particular questions. We are happy to host and discuss with you and roll out pilots with ContentGrid. Thank you very much. Enjoy the remainder of your day. Thanks for joining us, and see you later.